Prince Sports here. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and all that other good stuff. Now, we did a lot of talk about the Lakers yesterday, but let's talk about Jimmy Butler. Okay, I want to talk about him in the Miami Heat. I think they got a bright future. Excuse me. Miami Heat is one superstar away from really competing for a championship. Now, as good as Jimmy Butler is, he had to play out of his mind, out of the ordinary, for him just to win those last two games. And even if he did play out of his mind for those last two games, if LeBron stepped up to the challenge in the fourth, they would have still got swept, even with Jimmy Butler dropping 40. You know, that was just the case of LeBron James dropping the ball in those last two games. Because both of those games Jimmy Butler balled out in, the Lakers still had winning chances of beating the Miami Heat in those last two games. But this is more about Jimmy Butler so. Now, for years, I've been saying Jimmy Butler's an all-star, not a superstar. And I still believe that, okay? I think they're missing a superstar. And Jimmy Butler could slide to the number two. He's great for being the number two. If you ask me, Jimmy Butler is great for being the number two. But as far as being the number one, I don't think he's that guy to be a number one. I mean, but you still got to take your hat off to the Miami Heat. With that roster, they underachieved. They pushed the Lakers to 6 games when they had no business pushing the Lakers to 6 games. Okay, they kept the team. If they keep the team intact with all those guys, let them develop, the Miami Heat can win the championship. I think if you add a piece like Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's a championship contending team. But you got to keep the pieces that they already have, but add Giannis there. They can win the championship. Now, with AD playing off and on, there's a good chance if Giannis was on that Miami Heat team, they could have pushed that series to 7 games, and anything could happen at that point. So I think Giannis is the perfect answer, even though they beat him, a guy that won Defensive Player of the Year and MVP. You put a superstar like that with Jimmy Butler, oh Lord have mercy, you got a good basketball team. All right, two all-stars, 1 superstar, 1 sidekick, perfect. Then you got Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, all those good pieces coming off the bench. That's more than enough to compete for a championship. So Jimmy Butler deserves his respect too. But as you know, basketball is a game of wins and losses. So at the end of the day, his efforts are going to be forgotten because he lost. You know, those 2 games that he balled out in, they're going to be forgotten because he lost. It's just how the situation is. But they went through a tough Indiana team. They beat the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Okay, they beat a title contending team in the Boston Celtics. A lot of people thought the Celtics was going to go to the finals. So, and they were able to push the Lakers to 6 games. You got to give you credit. Jimmy Butler deserves his respect too. He's a tough one, man. He's a dog, and he balled out. He didn't much showed up in Game 6, but hey, I mean, he emptied out the tank in those last 2 games to help his team get a win. So at least he didn't go out on sweeping terms, because there's a lot of teams with more that should have won but got swept. I mean, look at LeBron James. I mean, he got swept twice in the finals. Against the 2017 against the Spurs. You could make a case that he had no business winning a game, but shit. If Jimmy Butler could win 2 games against LeBron James and Anthony Davis, then LeBron should at least get 1 game against the San Antonio Spurs. At least 1. You know, ball out when you got 50 and you could at least put the team on your back and win 1 game. Or at least balled out to a point where you dropped 60 or something. You know, but it didn't happen. So, much respect to Jimmy Buckets. You know, he balled out this season, had an incredible season. So I want to just make this video real quick and give him a shout out. And hopefully we can see what the Miami Heat got in store for next season, because they're a good team for the future. Stay on that team, Jimmy Butler, because they're going to build around you and put a championship team around you. Stay on that team. Do not leave. Prince Sports out.